This is Lisa from MobileTechReview, and it's that time of year. It's the iPhone 11 Pro. These are the Pro Max models. We'll do the iPhone 11 separately because that's significantly different. The iPhone 11 Pro, not Max, is really the same phone, just a smaller screen size. You know the deal there, so no different features to talk about. So there's a lot of reviews out there, obviously, and yes, from the back, you certainly won't mistake these for the iPhone 10 or 10s. So this is a new generation here, mostly because of, number one, the matte glass, which I particularly like. I know some of you have different feelings about that. It doesn't show fingerprints. It looks really nice. Okay, it's going to be under a case anyway, let's face it, but still. And I find it a bit less slippery. Now, some people who have more oily, sweaty hands might actually get the slippery glass a little more sticky than the matte glass. Me, I have pretty dry hands. Anyway, we're going to look at it now. The next thing that you're going to notice that's way different on the back is the camera lens cluster, right? Much talked about, and good God, it is, I don't know, it looks like looking down the barrel of the latest Borderlands 3 gun or something like that. So obviously Apple is not without taste. They usually make pretty products. I think that what they really wanted to do is to show off the prowess of the cameras, right? So they're bringing them to your attention with this design, making a statement that, look, we're back. We're not going to be second-class citizens anymore. Not going to be totally shamed by whatever pixel is out. You get the idea. It's still kind of ugly. The other thing is the new color for this year is green, midnight green they call it. Some people love it. It's nice. It's different to have a different color, but still it's sort of like depressed khaki to me. I don't know. I will be putting a case on this. So now that I've picked on the way the camera looks, well, really I haven't. I've just explained why Apple wants to bring it to your attention as one of the best features on the phone. It's fantastic. We will talk about the camera because that's one of my favorite upgrades here. Otherwise, you've got the Apple A13 Bionic. Probably you didn't think your A12 equipped iPhone XS was really feeling that slow, but I do notice a difference. I have this curse. Some people can really make Android get all slow and sluggish. I can make any iPhone get slow and sluggish, and this one's pretty darn zippy. Application launches, networking load times, and it's not just about the processor speed. We now have gigabit 4G LTE on board. No 5G, but 5G networks are still pretty new, fledgling, expensive to use, not much coverage. So I don't know. This year, it's not going to matter. Maybe it will next year, and given how expensive phones are, we do think about next year and the year after. I do understand that, but in terms of the bands and all that sort of thing, it's still not really completely settled down, so I wouldn't want to pay extra for 5G yet. We also have faster Wi-Fi 6, that's AX Wi-Fi, so indeed, anything you use on the network, which is just about everything these days, is going to feel faster, whether you're on Wi-Fi or on 4G LTE. We have 4 gigs of RAM, another thing that can make it feel pretty snappy, help with multitasking, not close down apps so much, you get the idea. The A13 is so darn fast that you might ask yourself why. It's not like the most demanding games and applications were slow on the previous generation iPhone. Well, it's also for the computational photography, which gets back into, we're going to talk about photography a lot in a minute, but what they're doing is computational photography, which is part of what, or a big part really, what makes Pixel phones so good. It's not like they have a lot of lenses or the best quality lenses or anything really special there, but they're doing a whole lot of photoshopping inside the phone, basically, to bring you the best possible picture, including things like combining multiple images and finding the best parts of each picture. And Apple's going to be building on that and adding features in terms of computational photography as the year goes along. So a good use for that CPU in case you're saying, I don't need a new CPU. Another thing that should make most people happy, because when manufacturers survey folks about what they really want most in their phones, it's not some gee whiz bang feature that nobody's ever thought of or has thought of. It's better battery life. Well, Apple has put bigger batteries in, and they have removed the 3D touch engine and replaced it just with haptic feedback instead. So yeah, no more 3D touch. But I think most people will take a bigger battery. In fact, ever so slightly thicker and slightly heavier than the 10 and the 10s family of phones that these are replacing. They claim 4 hours of additional screen on time or use time with the iPhone 11 Pro and 5 hours with the 11 Pro Max. And so far, the first couple of days it's doing a heck of a lot of indexing, especially if you have a lot of photos and iCloud and all that sort of thing. So give it a couple of days. And yes, battery life really is improved. It's pretty darn impressive, actually. No more ugly battery packs and cases, that sort of thing, little USB battery packs and all that. So unless you're going to be climbing in Appalachia or something like that, where you're really going to be away from electricity for days on end, you probably are going to be good to go, because I find even with moderate to fairly heavy use, but not gaming, that the phone will go for 2 days of use before I have to plug it in. Swing. It supports fast charging, so did the last model, but now we get the 18-watt fast charger in the box. We don't have to pay extra for it. If you get the regular 11, you do have to pay extra for it. Now, Apple's version of fast charging is still sort of fast charging. It's not as fast as something like the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Plus, which, oh my God, goes up so fast. You can actually sit there and watch it over the course of a minute and see the percentage points going up on it. It probably has to do with how much space Apple has internally for the battery to expand while it's charging, that sort of thing. Probably the same reason they didn't do reverse wireless charging, so you cannot use it to charge your second generation AirPods or your Apple Watch. Bummer that. So yeah, up to about 60%, it will fast charge, and they claim up to 50% charge in a half an hour. So far, I've gotten 40% charge in a half an hour, which is okay. It's not the fastest I've ever seen. It's better. And then after 60%, it slows down to preserve the life of the battery over the years, in theory, so it could be more exciting there. Also, we still have a Lightning connector. We don't have USB-C yet, which isn't the end of the world, but it's kind of a bummer because it means one more kind of cable that you have to carry around for folks who have a lot of other USB-C based products, including, well, laptops. We still have Face ID. It's as miraculous as ever. I don't have a beard or anything like that, so I don't have a problem with it. I typically do look at the phone, though it's supposed to be a little better at off angles for those of you who hate to really pick up the phone and look at it. No in-display fingerprint scanner for you this year, sorry. Now, I'm not surprised by that, actually, because the most secure kind, and Apple's really into very secure biometrics, is the ultrasonic kind that Samsung is using in the Galaxy S10 and the Note 10 family, and those are still pretty bulky, and I don't think Apple would be happy with a 90% success rate. They want it to be like at 99. We also have ultra wideband. What the is that, right? Okay, non-geek speak means that this is a chip that gives it greater spatial awareness for locating pretty much other devices, like for AirDrop. It's pretty handy. So say you and your family have a bunch of iThings or Macs around, and when you want to AirDrop, there's this whole long list of who you want to AirDrop to. The idea is you probably should be able to actually aim your iPhone at the device you want to AirDrop with and make it a whole lot quicker and easier. That's nice. And also they could do things like luggage tags and whatever else Apple and third parties dream up. The display gets a new made-up name this year. It's still an OLED display. They call it XDR, which has no industry meaning. It's a marketing name from Apple to say this is a new generation of OLED display that's even brighter, mostly than the last generation. To my eye, it looked a little bit sharper. The resolution hasn't changed. The size hasn't changed. The PPI hasn't changed. And the PPI is sufficiently high that holding it like 12 inches away, it's perfectly sharp. You can't get much sharper. So yes, 4K displays like Sony does with their Xperia phones. Neat marketing, not so much necessary. Anyway, it looks a little bit nicer, but primarily the thing you might notice is that it gets a bit brighter, both for the home screen outdoors. They claim 800 nits, and DisplayMate says that it's actually hit almost 900 nits. And for your HDR effects, when you're watching, say, Netflix videos or looking at HDR photos, it can go up to 1200 nits, Apple says, and DisplayMate said 1290 nits. So it's a nice enough looking display, and I find that kind of Apple and Samsung, they do a little leapfrogging here. And the Note 10 Plus to me was looking better than my iPhone XS Max, and now we're kind of back at parity. The Note 10 Plus is still slightly more accurate for color representation for Adobe sRGB and DCI P3 color gamuts, but it's so close, they're both so close to perfect that probably your eyes can't tell. The speakers on this are excellent. Stereo, loud, rich, and full. It sounds more like a laptop than a phone. Apple says they've improved it from the last generation. I can't really hear a difference that much, to tell you the truth. A little bit louder, that's about it. A little bit maybe fuller, but not night and day, because the previous generation was already so good on this. And while I love my Note 10 Plus, it is put to shame when it comes to the speakers. It sounds thin, tinny, and not nearly as loud. Apple does such a good job with the speakers. As always, if you want to use headphones, you're going to have to use Lightning adapter based headphones or wireless ones like AirPods or whatever it is that you want to use. So let's talk about the cameras. The biggest selling point besides the battery life and the new more durable matte glass display, which by the way, Apple has a commercial where they shoot various vegetables and toys at the thing and it doesn't break, but if you drop it from 6 feet onto concrete without a case, it will still crack. Glass is still glass. You can only go so far with that. But anyway, cameras. You get 3 cameras. One of the things that I really felt like a second-class citizen about when I was using my iPhone XS Max was, I don't get no 3 cameras, right? My Samsung phones have that. Why not? Wide angle is really a lot of fun if you're doing landscape shots, if you want to include a big family photo, you know, all those things that you can think of to do. Creative photography. It's just nice to have. Well, now we get 3. So you've got your wide angle lens, which is equivalent to 13 millimeters in traditional SLR focal length, which is 120 degrees field of view. You have your normal lens, which on phones tends to actually be pretty wide angle, like 26 millimeter in the case of the iPhone. And you have the telephoto lens, which is 52 millimeter equivalent, which would be a normal lens on a digital SLR. If you go with the iPhone 11, you don't get that tele lens. So you have your usual portrait effects, which Apple started a whole craze for doing, and it does a better and better job. You'll still see occasional fringing or little places where it misses, but it also has a depth sensing camera to help it do some of the computation around not screwing up portrait and bokeh effects so well. It does a pretty nice job. That wide-angle lens is really nice. And I like mostly the new UI that Apple has for the camera app. So it shows you the framed version of the photo you're going to take. And instead of just seeing black, you see a kind of fuzzed out, slightly blurred version of what the wide-angle camera would see too. So it lets you get a visual indicator, like maybe you want to use that wide one or maybe you don't. However, if you are a pretty serious photographer and used to framing your shot, it can also be a little distracting and mess with your brain. So you can't turn it off. It is the way it is. I think most people are probably going to like it, except for some of us more serious photographers who don't want to be distracted with other fields of view at the same time. The quality on the camera, I was really surprised. I didn't think it would be this good. They have really upped their game because they were getting their butts kicked by several Android phones out there. Very nice looking shots, very colorful, very sharp. The HDR mode still makes pictures that look sometimes a little HDR-y, you know, sometimes a little pastel-y and a little hyper vivid, but then again, that's a kind of a popular look. But overall, the detail that it captures, the colors, the color accuracy, very nice. Still leans a little towards the warm, say, compared to the Pixel family, but when you're shooting people, that's usually a good thing. So when you're shooting video, one thing that I absolutely love, instead of just switching by tapping on the 3 camera lens options, you can actually drag and zoom. So you can do a zoom in when you're shooting video, which is just really pro looking, very nice. And I hope everybody starts doing that really soon. When shooting video, you can do up to 4K at 60 frames per second, and you have optical image stabilization on the tele and the normal lens. They don't list it for the wide-angle lens, but it's using some kind of probably software-based stabilization that's uncannily good. I tried to bounce around and all that sort of thing, and I don't have the most even walk, and it kind of looks almost like drone footage. It's just very smooth looking. So overall, the cameras are a vast improvement. And then now we have the new night vision mode. So it combats Pixel's night sight. And I took some really weird pictures, dark living room pictures, and you can see some comparisons rolling with the Galaxy Note 10 Plus and all that sort of thing, and the older iPhone. It does a fine job there. Not super different, though, from the competition. So then Pixel 3a XL. We know the Pixels are the best at night shots. So I locked myself into a dark bathroom and left just 1 inch of door open so I wouldn't actually walk into a cabinet. That's how dark it was. And you can see how it did versus the Pixel for that shot. Really very close. We're talking 3-second exposures here. So part of the sharpness of the shot really depends on how still you can hold the camera. It's going to vary from shot to shot. But I would say it's holding its own against the Pixel 3 family. Now, the Pixel 4 is coming out in mid-October 2019, so we'll see what happens then. For the selfie camera, you can choose between a standard view and a wider view now, and you can see examples of that. There's little arrows that just tap on to switch views. That's pretty easy. And we have the Slowfie. And you can see an example of that going on. I don't know how many brain cells were wasted at Cupertino coming up with that feature. Do we really need slow motion selfies? You tell me. I think one of the things that actually helps the iPhone, or now Pro model, is the fact that they still offer a 5.8-inch flagship phone. In Android land, all the flagships are phablets. They're really big screen phones. So for those of you who really don't want a big phone, but you want all the high-end features, Apple still has you covered. Samsung has the S10, but that's 6.1 inches, not quite as small. So there it is, the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and by extension, the 11 Pro. There's enough to like about these that I'm not really disappointed what Apple has done. In fact, I love the cameras. I love the battery life. The screens are competitive now with the best Android has to offer, other than there's no fast refresh display option. Some of you are into that. Others not so much. I don't care super much about that. But obviously, if you have an iPhone 10S or 10S Max. Probably not worth the upgrade unless you have one of those upgrade every year plans, or you're really into photography, or you need more battery life. And a lot of people are both of those things, aren't they? And if you're coming from an older phone, I know a lot of people have their iPhone 7 still or something like that. This is going to be a tremendous upgrade, from the phenomenal cameras to the Face ID to the borderless displays. And they are nice phones. I'll give Apple that. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos and hit that notification bell.